In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live stream episode of In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie. My name is Ryan Roxie. Today is an exciting day for me. You know, I've actually wanted to talk with this guy for years because we've been sort of over the years. There's been lots of talk. Everyone thinks that Alice Cooper alumni all know each other and are pals and this and that and always hang out. And a lot of the times I haven't met a lot of the band members that have been in the Alice Cooper band because he's had so many. I mean, we're lucky with the lineup that we have now. It's pretty consistent, but this is one of the bigger band members ever to appear in the Alice Cooper band. You guys all know him, influenced a lot of the sound, a lot of the look of what the Alice 80s band was. So I want to welcome to In the Trenches, Mr. Kane Roberts. Welcome. There you go. Who's going to put him on? Come on. That's you. Hey, what's happening?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. Same thing for me. I've wanted to meet, everybody in the band. We met a long time ago. I think it was really briefly. It was just like an introduction.
That's all it was.
The last time I saw you, I said hi to Chuck and I know Glenn a little bit and of course Nita. But I didn't get to see you in Vancouver. So
that was the last time that we were in the same building together, because everyone always thinks, but you came and checked out the show. I was trying to get somewhere to say hello to you, but then you were backstage in a secret backstage, and you had a little powwow with Nita Strauss, and I got a little bit like, well, I want to meet Kane. Where is he? And then by the time I went up to the bus and then came back down, there was like, oh no, he just left. And I always got that, he just left. So,
well, that was the day of the video shoot. The video shoot was the next day, and Alice. Now, I'm sitting in my hotel room. I was supposed to have my gun guitar show up for the video, and the customs actually didn't let it through, believe it or not.
Shocker.
So I get a phone call. And it was Kyler, and he goes, "Hey, Alice would love you to sit in tonight." And I was like, "Whoa," because that's a huge deal. But I didn't have a microphone guitar, so it turned out to be a situation where I wasn't able to. And then Nita was going, "Why don't you just ask me? I would have lent you one." And I said, "Well, I never assume, I'm supposed to take someone's guitar, so."
Well, you could always
I didn't get to meet you. So
you could have cut my Flying V into some sort of gun shape. It kind of has a little bit of a rocket gun shape thing. Trust me, from now on,
I would have broken the neck off.
Anytime in the future that you come or we're in the same building, you're definitely coming up on stage for sure. And like I said, we are here to talk about The New Normal, which is your last release on Frontiers Records. Alice Cooper was obviously in the song Beginning of the End, as well as Alyssa White from Arch Enemy. And also on that album, Nita Strauss appeared on King of the World. I didn't know that. Lizzie Hale and you wrote The Lion's Share, that song. So I want that song itself, the video Beginning of the End. How did that all come about, and how did Alice Cooper end up becoming in the video?
Well, I mean, you know how it is. So, you're in the studio, and I recorded a vocal that we were kind of happy about. I was saying, hey, that's, it sounds really good. But there's certain guys, like, as you know, singing is acting as well. You've got to really feel the lyrics. You have to feel the part. I remember Desmond Child told me to read the lyrics to songs almost like it's a script to a movie. So, even though I was singing the song really well, I wasn't delivering it with enough power. And I thought, anybody that wants to say they bleat false promises until you're broken, I'll cut their evil tongue. I went, that's Alice Cooper. So I called him. He was in town. He came over the same day. It was just a complete sort of a miracle. And he and Cheryl showed up. We laughed almost uncontrollably for about an hour. And then he went in and recorded, one of the best vocals I think that I've ever heard him do. And he upgraded the song, so much. I mean, just having his presence on the song really changed everything. So you know about him as well. So,
I know that whatever song that you have that you might write naked on your couch, or you're sitting in your robe like you are and you're just jamming and it becomes a riff,
yeah.
and maybe it becomes a song. The second you give it to Alice and he puts a vocal on it or changes a word here or there, then it becomes an Alice Cooper song. And it's an Alice Cooper song from there on out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like these other planets get attached to the song as well. These entire, like, these cults, these whole worlds that he's lived through. He really is. You can hear it in his voice and how he delivers different lines. He's pretty amazing guy. So
you had this record, The New Normal. It comes out. You have all-star cast with Alice in the video. You have Alyssa from Arch Enemy in the video, which as well. Were you thinking that maybe this year you would have been touring that, and then all of a sudden things got a little bit derailed?
you mean, did I want to tour the album?
Yeah, I was thinking that you might perhaps be on tour sometime in 2020, but wait a second, the world changed.
Yeah, see, like, I'm a little bit, my whole feeling about touring's a little different. So I'm more, I think I'm going to be, as an artist, I would like to be a little bit more video centric, if you know what I mean. Like, I think I can reach a lot more people than I would otherwise if I was, let's say, touring clubs in the US. Some of my friends who play with, massive bands, I won't mention any names, but I mean, they do clubs and there's 20 people there. So I feel, when I made that album, that CD, I thought to myself, I want to do videos. So I have 3 more videos ready to go off of the record. My relationship with Frontiers, completely exploded. But those guys, Mario and Serafino, are pretty amazing. Because they're the real deal. They're guys that were in their apartment and they wanted to keep hard rock and heavy metal just be viable. And they ended up with their record company, and they have a very hard-coded business model. But I love those guys. I just really admire them. But that the relationship, I'm kind of tough to work with sometimes, especially from the business side. Just because I don't agree with how a lot of it's handled. So, So what I've done on my own is finance 3 more videos, beyond the beginning of the end. I have a director's cut coming out. I have a video about domestic violence. And then finally, my last video is just going to be kind of psychotic with a celebrity sort of at the front of it. So it should be fun. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I think you might be ahead of the curve of where we're at right now. It might be serendipity. I don't know.
Yeah.
But because of our stage that I'm used to playing on and Alice is used to playing on, you're used to playing on in front of people, is sort of temporarily taken away. I think video is going to come back on the forefront, and it's going to take a lot more imagination and people that are promoting their music through videos. And it seems like you've already made that, because you're a smart business guy. You've done it on your own. You've when you mentioned club tours and big names pulling in 20 people, you can say Ryan Roxie. You can say my solo name. It's okay. I'm used to playing clubs.
What happened to me. Yeah.
So we know how hard it is.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Go ahead. What'd you? Okay. Well, I was going to say is, the industry, the way things have changed right now, everything's on its ass. The process will be normal. In other words, some of the promoters, let's say even guys that do huge festivals in Europe or whatever, they're going to go down. But there will be a businessman who will say, hey, I can get this for cheap. It's almost like a fire sale. And they'll take up, that guy's business, and then they'll find a way to get people into these venues. They'll rip off the artist, just like every other business model, and everything will be back to quote unquote semi-normal. There's going to be changes. I don't know exactly what they're going to be, but it doesn't matter what your job is, there's going to be changes to it. And I think that's the complex part about the, economy coming back. It's not a normal thing because there's this layer of this virus crap on top of it. So, but,
Right.
in terms of artists, this is when people invent, just like you said. And I think you have a thing that you recorded that's for live streaming, and I have one coming up with somebody. As soon as it gets real, I'll let you know first. And it's going to be it's kind of exciting in a way. This is a depressing time if you just look at it as like a depressing time. A good time to invent something and come up with your own method of getting your music out so that people can hear it and people can get to know it, like this show. Typical. It's good.
Perhaps it's time that musicians can take, and you're really interesting me right now with what you're saying. It's very interesting, is that perhaps now is the time that musicians can take a little bit more control back into their corner and take a little bit of control and be able to dictate a little bit more how they want their career sort of presented. And I think you're on your way to doing that, right?
Yeah, well, that they have musicians just in general. I mean, occasionally I did some seminars with music, and there'd be a lot of young people there, and everybody's like, should I go into the music industry? What it's like? Well, you never really want to safely advise somebody to get into the music industry,
Right.
and because it's rough, So you have to have that thing, and I'm sure you possess it. Everybody tells you no, you're going to fail. There's a million people right now trying to do what you do. Why do you think you're going to succeed? You hear it all the time, and people hear it all through their lives. There'll be some kid ready to go to college and he wants to paint, and everybody tells him, "What are you fucking kidding?" And so they talk him out of it. There's certain part of musicians that are too stupid to listen, and we just keep moving forward and try to create something so that people can hear. But in terms of like how to profit off the industry, you got to understand how it started. Musicians back in the day used to stand on the side of the road with little shoes that curled up with a bell and have a mandolin, and rich people like drove by in carts and threw meat at them. But it's still the same. In a way. I mean, they're not throwing meat. Maybe they're throwing tomatoes. I don't know. But
Well, at a wasp
it's
show,
in
maybe.
other words, it's yeah. And so it's a rough situation to be in. But once you make the decision, then what you want in life, your real job is to wake up happy every day. So if you say, I think that's going to make me happy is if I play music, you got to come up with something. You got to fucking invent something. If you can't play live anymore, it's up to you to come up with something new. Because if you wait for the corporations to do it, and by the way, people are going to start improving all the streaming software and all that stuff. If you wait for a corporation to fix things, you're going to get ripped off than you can possibly imagine. So,
You were a little bit perceptive in the fact that you joined the Alice Cooper band in '85. You played on 3 of his most popular records in the '80s. You had obviously a big influence on the way the band image was, but then you didn't play for a long time. And then you made some solo records, but then you took sort of a hiatus, and that's when you got more studied and got into technology. I'm going to go back to the '80s in a second, but I want to talk a little bit more about what you're saying, because you actually studied technology, you studied graphics, computer programming, and you saw all this happening, in the forefront.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, through history, technology comes in and cuts the legs off of industries. Like look at the printing industry. So these people had these little mom and pop shops. Suddenly, Hewlett Packard comes out with a $100 printer, and all of those businesses are pretty much destroyed unless they move into whatever technology is allowing Hewlett Packard to do that, and they have their own sort of a new setup for their business. In terms of the place that we're in now, you can look at it like an opportunity if you can get at the forefront on how to either monetize doing live streaming stuff, or just doing it just to get your music out there and like increase your brand a little bit. So yeah, we're stuck in our places. I'm not an obeyer. I don't like it. I still go out. I still do stuff. It's tough for me to just sort of hunker down. But it's a real situation. So, we have to deal with it. I know people that are experiencing tremendous anxiety over it, but I always say, maybe my best stuff that best guitar playing I ever did was my life just felt like it just suddenly got wrecked, I was either broke up with some girl that, I felt I could never live with or whatever. And suddenly I'm sitting there and I'm practicing guitar all day and I'm playing a song. And, it's one of those things where as a musician, you have to absorb hardship as well as the good times as well. And, certainly, we're going to know some hardship in terms of, my clubs, the clubs I used to play in when I was a kid were like, would be like a strip club on rock night,
Right.
And we would make at the end of do the door and into the night, I'd get $11.87. And, I don't know
Good night.
I ever told you, well, I guess I couldn't. But I used to make money. I used to deal cards at this illegal blackjack game in Manhattan. So we would go from hotel conference room to hotel conference room, every weekend. And so I would do a show and I'd go in there and I'd deal blackjack and I'd make, maybe $800 with tips and everything. I'd walk in and the guy would show me where all the guns were. I mean, it was like, this was how I was going to survive. I certainly wasn't going to survive by strapping on the guitar and singing originals at some strip club. So, that's the war that you get into. But, you look at a lot of industry. What was that guy, Jeff Bezos, who made one of the most incredible companies in the world? I saw a picture of him in his first office. And it looks like, my office when it's a complete,
Oh, it looks like my room right now. Yeah, I know.
You can just see,
I've seen that.
You just got to start. You got to do what you got to do. The point is, having the idea is one thing. Making the idea take place is end zone. And that's what we should all be shooting for, no matter what sort of crap the government throws at us,
Damn. You're giving good advice, Kane. This is good. And everyone told me that, you know what? He's smart. And he's funny and he can fucking play guitar. So that's what I want to get into a little bit more about the guitar playing, because you joined Alice in 85. Before that, had you been in a bunch of different bands, or did Alice pluck you from obscurity? How did that whole audition? Because I know that for me, I went down and auditioned. Eric Singer was on drums, Bob Daisley was on bass, and Alice Cooper was actually in the room. Now, how did your audition go down?
Yeah. Well, mine was a little different. I had sent my tape. I think it was a cassette tape to this guy Don Passione at his publishing company called Screen Gems, because I was sneaking in the studio for free late at night with an engineer, and I would record all these demos, and then somebody said, has anybody heard them? And I said, no. I mean, I was wondering why I didn't have a record deal. And I was just sitting on these tapes. So I sent them everywhere. This one guy calls me back and he said, I sent your tape to Bob Ezrin and he'd like you to come in and meet him. I didn't know that Alice actually came to a club once and saw me play. So he sort of snuck in. I don't know how he pulled that off. And he was there very briefly, but he saw me play. So I drove down to Manhattan and went in there, and I met, Ezrin. Ezrin had me in this office where there's a big picture, big window behind him, and you could see the New York skyline,
Right.
And his chair is a big oak desk, and my seat was like a lawn chair. I swear to God, I was like,
by design,
I was like 2 feet tall. Look,
that's very Bob Ezrin.
He was
by
doing
design.
the Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, Kane. It was an echo. He said, "We come here tonight." No, I'm kidding. But he goes, Kane, you are 50% of a great writing team. And I went, oh boy, I'm getting the shit kicked out of me already.
Here we go.
And then he said, so that's going to prep me for what was to come. And I go into the next room and it's Shep, Johnny Podell, all these people, and Alice Cooper. And I'm looking and I'm saying, these are people that changed culture. They changed the world. They're just really movers and shakers beyond. I mean, Shep has done so many things that people are aware of. And with all that stuff going on, and, I don't really get nervous in those situations, but, the structure of it is very evident. And Alice and I became best friends in the midst of all of it. We shut all the noise out and we became best friends that day. And we actually drove to a studio and a hotel and hung out for 4 or 5 days and did some writing and things. So that's kind of how it started. I know that he was concerned at the time coming out of rehab, like a very, very harsh rehab, where they didn't want somebody who's going to, pull out drugs or whatever. So I was perfect in that light to the management because, I was, into this whole, I was just starting to do this bodybuilding thing. So I was lifting a lot, but I hadn't gone to California and gotten serious with it yet. So, but they could see that I wasn't gonna, pull any sort of in something unexpected and, pull out a joint or whatever and offer it to him. So I think that helped as well.
And you never got Alice on any steroids. Did he ever want to get it in on the?
I did. I shot steroids into his eye when he was sleeping. It didn't seem to stick for some reason.
Best way. Best way.
But, I mean, people ask me like, "Okay, you do steroids?" Well, try going into the gym with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Corey Everson, and my training partners were Bertil Fox and Tony Pearson, these huge guys, and so I started dabbling in it. I definitely took steroids. I mean, I'm not doing it now, but I did it for a little bit, and I went from something like 179 to like 230 pounds. That's a lot of steak. Like some of those photos I see of myself, I go, "What the fuck?" So, but I ended up dropping it.
I told someone that I was going to, like, judging from those early 80s pictures, I said at one point I was going to have to interview one of your veins, and just get the inside scoop on one of your arm veins, and see that would have an interview in itself. But
my arm veins got really vascular. There was some knucklehead on Blabbermouth, which is like, I walk into there, everybody's like kicking my ass. "Hey, fuck you." But somebody said, "Oh man, he's got varicose veins." I was going, "No, don't."
No,
it's like,
they're sexy.
Step off.
Dude, I love my veiny arms. I've always had veiny arms. It's one of my I don't have the size, the bulk, but the veins are actually, well, there it is. That's me as Nita Strauss before Nita Strauss, if you can see.
Yep.
But I think one of the questions, one of the things was probably like, how do you not do steroids back in those days? If you're next, side by side with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I can see that the audition itself, what process was different, but what we have in common, I think, is that my first time playing on stage with Alice Cooper, we were recording a VH1 special in Cabo. It became an album called Fistful of Alice. And I think the first time you ever played a live show with Alice, wasn't that a video or in some sort of live home video?
We did dress rehearsals.
I didn't.
It's really funny. It was, but a very, 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 very famous R&B singer saw me at Pep's office, and the guy fell in love with me. So I didn't know this, but we're doing the at Studios, we're playing, and this guy shows up, and I go, "What the fuck is he doing here?" And he had
I know who it is. I can guess.
Kentucky. Yeah, okay. You can guess who it is.
I can guess it is because I've done the math. I can do the.
Yeah. So he brought Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he was wearing a limo hat. And somebody said that he just wanted to see me. I never spoke with the guy, but I was like, "Oh Jesus," And Chef said, he's kind of on a different team, but so not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, that was happening. But yeah, I mean. Putting the shows together with Alice, I mean, I know it's really because he's very open. He lets the bands create. I mean, do you find like you're able to develop your art? You're able to develop the sound, Nita and Glenn and everybody. Is that correct? Or
that is totally correct. And the thing that I like most about it is that Alice will always give you a spotlight because he's so confident in his own ego. He's so good in his own skin that he always shares the spotlight and shares and puts the ideas for everyone to contribute.
Yeah, that's what it is. And very few artists have that kind of confidence. I remember we came out, our first big show, our first real show was Joe Louis Arena, Halloween night, Detroit, which is a big event for Alice.
Yep.
And
Detroit.
20, 30,000 people. I'm not sure what it was. And, the band is nervous, and it's being filmed and recorded and broadcast live on MTV. Basically our first show.
Yeah.
So, the band is backstage, definitely very wide-eyed and hyperventilating. So, we heard Paul was up on stage, up on the riser, and he plays the first notes to Welcome to My Nightmare. And this deep dark chord that we have, it's like, and smoke starts rising on the stage, and the crowd goes absolutely crazy. And this is the first time everybody in the band experienced an audience like that. We had all played clubs. I mean, we'd done some big shows, but nothing like this. So, that sort of got us a little bit more tense. And so then we hear, Alice go, "Welcome to my nightmare," and the whole place explodes.
Wow.
And so what Alice and I decided to do was make them think it's the classic arrangement. And then right before he explodes on the stage and kicks in that gate, we just go into a heavy metal version of it. And so when Alice hit the stage, the band just completely relaxed because he had the whole thing covered. He had never done a show straight where he wasn't gay. No, I'm kidding. He had never done a show straight where he wasn't high somehow.
Yeah, where he wasn't stumbling.
So but he just completely took over, and I was looking at him going, he's reaching the last person way up into the bleachers there, So, but that's how we got started. And Alice and I's plan was to not look as if he survived rehab. We wanted it to have a nuclear version of him come back. So, yeah.
This is the creation that happened. We both got to experience sort of sober Alice, and every year that goes by, he tends to get better with time. It's almost like wine. But I do remember going back when I first joined the band in '96, learning a lot of these arrangements. They were sort of, every arrangement of every band sort of carries on, and the torch is passed on, and so you learn the previous band's arrangements. But you guys had changed it in the 80s to a much heavier sound, much more what was in vogue at that time. So by the time we got to the aughts, and I just learned that word aughts, by the way, folks, the early 2000s, there was a complete reset by Bob Ezrin to go back to the original band's arrangements. So at this point, they'd evolved. Then we had a complete reboot, and now we've been sticking more to the traditional arrangements. But even that being said, Alice likes to take us. He loves what do you call those things? Take a little bit of this song, a little bit of that song, and make it into what's the word?
What, a mashup kind of a thing?
Yeah, but I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's like I'm not a melody. Gosh darn it! When the couple like songs are a montage of different songs.
Yes. Medley. I swear to God, the word's medley. See my finger? That means I'm kidding. Yes. But no, medley. Yeah, I think that's what we were trying to say.
And he's the king of the medley. So we've been able to morph our songs now into that. We actually have some songs in this year's set that we would have been playing on stage, and maybe we'll still be playing them at the end of the year on these shows that are from your era on the albums that you played on. We definitely do songs from Constrictor, Raise Your Fist and Yell, and Trash. But the one I was thinking of, I think Tommy and I challenged you to it. I don't know if you ever saw our challenge.
No, I saw that. You guys are playing it great. I was sitting there going like, what am I going to do? And then the next thing I would do is, just from my nature, is I would, be shredding all over the place, and I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? But I listened to your version, and I saw it live. I think it was one of the first times you played it in Vancouver. I'm not sure, but I just was kicking such heavy ass, so good, So I don't know. I think I commented, "No, you guys got this. You don't need me. You're totally doing it right." Now, some of the voicings and some of the stuff that we were doing was a little bit, a tiny bit different. But in terms of delivering the song and playing with that kind of power, and Glenn playing, Ken Mary's drums on that are unbelievable. You guys like completely smoked the song. I didn't feel there was one bit of energy lost in any way, and especially even with your, the techniques that you guys do. It's unbelievable. It's awesome.
Well, thank you very much for that. The song in question, folks listening, is "Roses on White Lace," and I know that Nita, when you talk about shredders, and Nita's like our designated shredder, so anytime a Kane Roberts era song comes up in the set list, Nita is chomping at the bit. We've done World Needs Guts as well, and so it was a cool transition for you to go from those early 80s, which was more of a new wave type of Alice sound, to now it's becoming more of that heavy metal.
Go ahead. I mean, the whole time I was trying to change the sound, I heard the same thing from Ezra and from everybody. Got to do the classic. And I just basically said, with Ozzy out there and with who you're going to compete with, by the way, a girl named Suzanne said she learned Roses on White Lace. So you should ask her.
Officer Burkholder, we know her well. I know. That's all you had to say. Yeah. We know the officer.
No, but I just think, like I said, Alice's histoire is like, I thought the biggest danger would be if he went to sounded like an oldies but goodies band, because like I understand what happens, but one guy made a comment once on one of our performances, I think it was at Wembley, and he said and he was one of those guys that's fully entrenched in the original lineup, which is totally understandable. I mean, anytime you see a band and you fall in love with the original lineup, one guy changes, and you're trying to get with it a bit. A few bands have been able to do that. I think Bon Jovi's doing it really well with Phil X, who's one of the really great guitar player.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the Stones made some changes and survived. Brian Jones was one of the huge guys for me when I was a kid. So they would see the band the way it was now. And this one guy wrote, Alice runs the risk of doing a tribute band for himself. And, I always thought that was actually, a very cogent statement. You have to come in with something, a little bit extra. That's why I always felt like, doing this metal version of all the songs and making the arrangements different and the show a little bit more bloody. Raise Your Fist and Yell was banned all over the place, Germany and England. We finally got in there, but we'd have to change the show. So I just thought, Alice needed an incredible amount of edge, which he's absolutely owns, so that's how it happened. But I mean, I was hearing the same thing, you'd hear from Ezra, and we gotta go back to, the 70s sound. And everybody always mentions MC5. I'm sure you've heard,
we
MC5
just toured with him. Yeah. Absolutely. That is an influence.
Yeah.
But you've created your own,
the thing is
an era.
Go ahead.
You created an era with Alice. You created an 80s era with Alice that is very important to the entire Alice Cooper legacy, because people do come for the 70s songs. They come for the 80s songs. They like the sort of return to the garage with the albums of Eyes and Alice Cooper and Dirty Diamonds. And then who knows what's coming up in the future, because Alice always seems to be reinventing himself.
Because no matter what it is, no matter what we do, as his band, Alice will deliver. I mean, if Shep says we're going to try it this way, Alice would kill it. So it takes a lot of pressure off of us. I learned so much just from watching Alice on stage. And I remember when I was in New York, I thought I was like unbelievable guitar player. I thought, I'm the shit, So I moved to LA, and there's so many amazing guitar players around bashing me on the head, Les Pauls and everything. So I got a fucking practice. And I was bringing myself up along while I was watching Alice. I would say I became sort of really engaged as a musician and a professional after the first tour because of him. You know, he's the one that, I mean, I could do all these metal arrangements. I could do all this stuff. You know, of course, he was involved in all of it. But it would all be awful without him, you know, at the front of it, you know, making my ideas work, because that's what he does. So.
Well, you mentioned all these great guitar players. Obviously, Phil X, he's been on In the Trenches as well. At that time, that time in that era, there's so many great shredders out there. There's so many great guitarists out there. But when did you decide that you needed to have a gun on stage? You know,
we hadn't done a tour yet. And I was hanging out at Shep Gordon's management company. You know, they manage Alice as well. And he managed me. So I used to hang around at the office because I basically had nothing to do. I was just kind of I moved from New York. I'll never forget. When I first came here to go and write with Alice, when I first came to California. Right. You know, the night before I'd been playing one of the gigs, you know, it was like some, you know, real have a dungeon somewhere in Manhattan, you know, so right. Suddenly I'm in Beverly Hills at this mansion, and there's this incredible pool, you know, and just a beautiful place, you know. I'm at Shep's place, and he came out. And I'd never met him. He said, "Hey, Kane, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, you know, doing really good." Hey, thanks, man. I was very nervous. I'm really fucking nervous. So, you know, he pulls out a joint and he goes, "You want a hit?" And I went, "Yeah." You know, and I hadn't smoked weed since I was like 2. No, since I was in high school. Okay. Right. And this was like weed had come a long way. And he had this Maui stuff that was like killer. So I got one hit and I went, whew. Right. And I gave it back to him because, you know, I had to be a little careful. I was so fucked up. I didn't know where I was. I walked over to the pool. It was February. Right. So it wasn't heated. So it was still cold at night. The pool was like an ice rink without ice. And I jumped in. I was at the bottom of the pool, like screaming because it was so fucking cold, you know. I was like, I climbed out of there and I got to get my shit together. So I just stayed by the pool until I came down a little bit. So.
I thought that idea gave you the idea for the machine gun guitar. That was a good segue.
Oh, sorry. So I was so stoned, I got a gun and I put string. No. So I was at a place at a live, right? And this kid comes in. This kid named Rick Johnson. Kid must have been 19, and he goes. I just want to see if you'd be interested in guitar. And so I said, okay, well, let me see it. And I open it. He pulls out this massive anvil case. The thing is huge. And he opens it up. And this incredible looking gun guitar. I was looking at it going, dude, that design. And he goes, well, you know, I'm an Army brat. My dad's a general and something, you know, so he around guns all of his life. And he made this guitar. So, you know, we go out back behind the office there, and, you know, I pulled the trigger and shot the thing up and it explodes. And this guy came down in a parachute. And I said, well, I don't think we need that. Okay. But see, for me, I wasn't going to do it because I was thinking to myself, guitar can't play well. And I plugged it in. It's got to be one of the best playing guitars I've ever had. I always look forward to that. So yeah, and then you know, I at that same rehearsal session at Fox, he said he put in a new charge. So I thought it was just a flame, okay? And so I said, okay. So we went in the parking lot and I shot it. It's shooting flame, and this Roman candle thing shoots out and goes in a window. It's like in this building. I said, oh fuck, you know. So we just ran inside. We didn't burn the place down, fortunately. So. But that's where it came from, this kid. And of course, you know, Shep is just really spotting something and thinking, you know, this is going to work very well. And I have to tell you, Ryan, I had no idea that I looked anything like Rambo. I have to be honest with it. Like when,
that was when not contrived.
When Alice and I were in the bus, I remember he said, you know, I was looking at it was Cream magazine. I don't know if you remember that.
Of
And they
course.
said, well, Kane Roberts, underrated, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he said, we're hoping to see more of Kane Rambo Roberts. And I went, the fuck they getting that? And Alice went, have you looked in the mirror lately? You know? So I remember I was looking at myself, all I need is a headband, you know? And so that stuck with me for some reason. But, you know, later I did lunch for Sylvester Stallone. So I got to tell him that.
That's great. That's great. But it is kind of strange that becomes a signature part of the look, and it almost becomes sort of like a look of the era of Alice Cooper. Everyone goes, oh, because you know, everyone joins the Alice Cooper band is usually like the people that come up to you and say, well, you know, Glenn and Michael, those are the best guys ever, and they are, because they wrote all those classic riffs, and they're part of the original band. But then the second question is always, you're not the guy with the gun guitar? I go, look at me. Have you ever just take a look. I have, and this is the time I have blonde dreadlocks. Yeah, my arms are about the size of your wrist. And basically, yeah, I didn't have a gun. But at the same time, I did end up getting my little signature piece. It's the red, white, and blue wristband that I wear. It's a lot less cumbersome, and it's much easier to get through customs, especially, you know,
guitar.
But that being said, I know that guitar was going to be in the video that you were playing with the New Normal on the beginning of the end video. But everyone knows you as a guitar player for Alice, but not a lot of people. Well, I would say not everybody knows you as good a vocalist as you are, because you've made like 6 solo records at this point where you're singing. 6.
Yeah, no, I made like I did the MC record, which was definitely, I did it with Michael Wagner, and you know, that was a learning experience for me. You know, see, the thing too is, you know, I can't talk about that without mentioning how the industry has changed, because my original record deal was for $250,000, and I was completely unknown, and you know, and it had videos attached to it. And, you know, I ended up working with Wayne Isham as a director, and, you know, I had all this stuff going on. And it just shows you that today, the average musician, especially, you know, if it's not rap, you can definitely get, you know, $500,000 as an unknown artist these days. If you're doing rock or metal or any of that stuff, you know, your budgets are going to be 10 grand. Sometimes people get offered 5 grand or 20 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just because culture has changed, and you know, it was a very proactive agenda to change everything. It is what it is. Europe, it's not so much like that, but you just see the difference in terms of the excesses that the record companies exercised. I mean, they get you the Shep got that much money on my first record deal, and I did have videos that I could do after that and all that stuff. Today, you're pretty much on your own. And going back to what you said earlier, you know, with current situation, I really believe that it is an opportunity for people. It's an opportunity, because the amount of reach you can get through the social networks and through, you know, YouTube is very deep. As long as, you know, my truest belief about, you know, the entertainment industry, success in any industry, is if you work really hard and you believe and you just make yourself the best you can, the world in some way will beat a path to your door. And so
Great.
I'm living proof of that. Back, Ryan, at the way I looked, no one would hire me ever, except Cooper. He's the only guy. And, you know, since then, I've never gotten an offer to play or do anything. Now, I always say my excuse is I don't suck. It's because of the way I look. But seriously, you know, it just proves that if you commit to something heavy and you get obsessed, I have always said to, you know, people that want any kind of advice from me, I don't know why they would, is that obsession is a good thing. Stuff gets burned up, you lose friends, you might lose a relationship. You got to make sure you don't lose your cat. But obsession can be a great thing. And you know, and I look at people like you, for example, you get an idea to do a show, a podcast, an interview show, whatever it is, and live stream it and all that. when you end zone that thing, it means that you conjured something in your imagination and then it manifests in the real world. And that's the real reward of all this stuff. And we have so much time at home right now. It might be a good time for people to maybe start, write a script, a book, whatever it is that they feel they never had time to do. So
the thing I'm getting more inspired by just by listening to you talk is that, yes, I do have a show. And yes, we could just sit around and bullshit about the old and glory days about Alice Cooper and your career and what you're going on to doing now. But what's really interesting to me is you have some really great philosophy about the business. You have some really good ideas about how you as a musician could stand up on your own. And that's what I would like this show to sort of evolve into. Maybe giving other musicians that are not at the position of where you're at right now, giving them some good insight and how they could do it themselves. So I have to actually invite you back for a part 2 where we actually concentrate a little bit more, a little bullshit, but some business stuff, because I would love to have you on more. I just wanted to say one thing about your solo records, because it was the Saints and Sinners album. I think you collaborated with Desmond Child a lot on that. He was a great songwriter. For those of you that don't know about Desmond Child, he wrote Poison. My buddy Earl Skakel, he's a comedian. He wanted me to ask you about playing with the drummer Myron Grombacher, who's one of my favorite drummers other than Glenn Sobel. But of Pat Benatar's band, Myron, did he play on that album? And what was that experience?
Fight during that. Myron's kind of a badass, so we almost went to blows. At the end, we were very friendly and very happy and all that stuff. But I remember he burst into this room, and we were sort of yelling at each other. Everybody thought we were going to go at it. So, but great drummer, played so incredible, and he was so responsible for Pat Benatar's success as well. So. I'd love to come back, Ryan. This has been a lot.
Well, oh boy, I don't want to get you down now. I don't want you going, because we might pull a Michael DeBars. Hold on.
Back?
Yeah, you're back, bud. It's okay. That's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah,
Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect. What I want to do right now is before we cut off. Hey, I think I'm starting to see a pattern here. What happens at about about 47 minutes? It's okay. It's okay. I want to, if we do have to go and you have to sign on again.
All right. This will settle. This will be good.
All right.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. I just want to thank everybody that has come listen to the show right now. If you're watching it on YouTube, please subscribe and check it out. And of course, keep your comments going. I know that Kane, it's one of those things that we're still working with the format as far as like what happens, how long can we live stream before one of our live streams and Wi-Fi connection goes weird. But I'm going to put on the girl now that brought this all together. This is Lourdes. Lourdes, hey. What's happening? What's going on? She, by the way, folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, she's the one, Lourdes, that brought Kane into my world. And I just wanted to thank you for getting Kane booked. I'm going to bring him back for part 2 where we talk a little bit more about the business. But hello, how you doing?
I'm good. I wanted to show Kane something. Hey bro.
Hey, am I on screen? Because my thing is.
I can't hear you.
Yes, you are. You are definitely on screen, and he can hear you, Lourdes. Yeah, can you?
Well, I can't hear Lourdes. What are you doing? He's babbling.
He's asking you what you're up to.
You better ask.
I'm still crying and hiding under my bed.
She's crying and hiding under her bed.
Look, Kane, look. Who am I? Hold on, let's see. Chi, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, I know what that is.
That sounds like an inside joke between Lourdes and Kane. Big brother, little sister, I think.
Look. Remember that? What are you talking about?
Oh my God, yeah.
Wait a second. Yeah.
Doesn't it say Kane Roberts?
We used to have so many. I can't do this camera right. But we had a lot of funny sayings. And so every day was just absolutely hilarious. He would sing Christmas carols at 5 o'clock in the morning in the summertime.
Well,
Hey, now hold on. Christmas carols
I
can
can't
be
hear
sung
him.
at any time.
Is it the
Christmas carols
technical
are
thing?
great songs. I believe that the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so
Oh my
delightful.
gosh.
And you got no place to go. Let it snow. You know.
Lourdes, he's actually singing lyrics to Christmas carols right now, and
Oh
it's
my God.
April. So maybe it's a good thing you can't hear it right now, but he's not doing it in his most sultry voice that we know
He can.
from.
No, he's got a good voice, but the
He's got a
funniest is
great
him.
voice.
Yeah, he would do a lot of Frank Sinatra. It was the funniest thing.
There
Oh
it
my
is.
God. Yeah.
Well, Lourdes, the fact that you guys can't hear each other, I'm going to say thank you real quick and take
All
you
right.
out. But thank you for getting Kane on the show. Kane, can you hear me okay right now? Are you back? Maybe. It's okay.
Are you there?
Yes. Christmas carols. Anybody?
So what I was going to say, if I had a message to give to some of your listeners, I'd really love them to go see Beginning of the End, the video I shot with Alice and Alyssa White Glues from Arch Enemy. His appearance I already mentioned. Alyssa's appearance on the video and on the song was I was about to do a guitar solo, and I thought to myself, I just don't like. It's part of my not being an obeyer. Like I don't like authority. Unless it's earned. And
Yeah.
I was thinking everybody just puts the solo here, and I thought to myself, what would it be like if Alyssa lands in the middle of the video and detonates the whole song? And if people listen to it, some people don't like that growl thing that she does and what other artists do, but when she starts singing, it's one of the most incredible voices in rock today. So she's going to have a massive future. I just hope everybody goes to take a look at it. Beginning of the End on YouTube with Kane, Alice, and Alyssa, and also the drummer from Baby Metal is on that song, Aoyama Hideki, who is one of the most humble guys I've ever met. He sent me back the tracks, 2 or 3 different takes, and he said, "I hope this is okay." And I was going, "Fuck, man! Thank you, Kitty Oates. Thank you."
There it is.
I'm
Shout
very
out.
happy you liked it.
There's a lot of people right now that have watched it, and it's good because I think Cheryl Cooper's in that video as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my
I remember that day.
Cheryl is unbelievable in that video. And by the way, we have a director's cut coming out. We were able, without any time crunch, to get 2 or 3 really talented editors, and the video is now like fully cinematic. It's fully going to be cool. So that's going to come out in about a month, and then I'm going to line up my other videos through the rest of the year. So pretty excited about it. But look, I think people will like it. It's very different.
I'm definitely going to have you back on where we can talk a little bit more about the business of music and talk about obviously the other videos that you have out and this mystery live stream that you're working on as well. So hopefully by then we will
live stream will be out by then.
Yes, and we'll talk more about it as well. I'm glad that we got our Wi-Fi back, but I don't want to tempt fate, and I want to just say this is part 1 of Kane Roberts and Ryan Roxie having a nice talk. I mean, it's literally the first time we've ever had
dude. I want to thank you for the opportunity. This is great. This might be one of the best conversations I've had, and next time I promise to take a shower. By the way, 9 a.m. Are you kidding me?
I'm trying to be a world citizen here. I'm trying because it's actually wine time here in Sweden, and I'm actually missing out on some wine time. My wife's going to bring me a little bit of we're going to have dinner and wine with my daughter, and then we're going to have and it's evening time, but it's morning in the West Coast, and there's a lot of people watching from and listening from Australia as well. So it's already tomorrow for them. So. Cool. Until next time, I want everyone to go follow Kane Roberts on Instagram at Kane Roberts X. And of course, you can always follow me at Ryan Roxie on Instagram. I appreciate you guys coming. Lourdes, thank you for bringing us together. The whole team, Vic, I know that you have some work to do with getting the sound and editing and all that stuff. We'll try and get a little clip of the new video, Beginning of the End, up there as well. But until next time, Kane, any parting words that you have for the folks out there? Because I know they're big fans.
Everybody stay tight. You're going to get upset about this whole lockdown thing. It's okay to be upset, just let it out. But, take a chance maybe and create something that you think that everybody told you couldn't make before. And then the other thing is watch my video. So have a great time, everybody. And as you can see, just by what I'm doing, I'm doing this, for you guys and to be able to communicate with everybody and with people like Ryan as well. So rock on.
Kane, thanks for coming on live in the trenches live stream with Ryan Roxie. We will have another episode up very soon. Go check out the YouTube Roxie TV official channel. But until next time, in the trenches with Ryan Roxie, it's been Kane Roberts on here. Enjoy the ride.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.